the Action Campaign's video series explaining the legislative provisions in the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act of 2021, commonly called the AHCIA. In this video, Ariane and I will discuss two provisions of the bill that would improve our ability to preserve affordable housing using the housing credit. Not only is the housing credit our nation's most important tool for building new affordable housing, but it is also the primary resource for preserving and recapitalizing existing affordable housing, in which the American taxpayer has already invested. Ariane, how would the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act help with preservation?
Thanks for that great question, Jennifer. Preserving existing affordable housing, including older HUD and USDA financed properties, can often be more cost-effective than building a new property from scratch. The Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act helps preserve our nation's affordable housing stock in several ways. As we've discussed in our other videos, providing additional housing resources through the cap increase and basis boosts and ensuring adequate bond resources by lowering the 50% test are critical to preservation. But there are a couple of programmatic changes included in the bill as well.
What are those changes and how would they impact the program?
The first programmatic change is in Section 202 of the bill. Let's take, for example, a property that was built decades ago with HUD or USDA resources, which needs rehab work to be preserved. The housing credit is a great tool to use for that rehabilitation. And by using the credit, we can ensure the property remains affordable for at least another 30 years. However, when the housing credit is used to recapitalize a property like that, all existing tenants must have their incomes recertified to ensure that they remain eligible under the housing credit income limits.
So what happens if a tenant's income has gone up or they aren't eligible under housing credit income requirements?
So that's the problem. If a tenant isn't eligible under the housing credit, the tenant either needs to move or the developer won't be able to receive the housing credits associated with that tenant's unit. That could mean that they won't have enough housing credit authority to make the rehabilitation feasible.
So how does AHCIA help?
So the AHCIA would allow existing tenants to be considered low income for purposes of determining eligible basis if the tenant met the housing credit income requirement upon initial occupancy, as long as their income has not risen to above 120% of the current area median income. This eliminates the tension between allowing existing tenants to stay in their homes and recapitalizing affordable properties.
Well, that makes sense. What's the other preservation provision you mentioned?
So this one is in Section 303 of the bill. Currently, when an occupied building is rehabilitated, it is often safer, more expedient, and more efficient if tenants are relocated while the work is being done. However, the IRS has taken the position that the cost of relocating tenants is deductible. That means a developer can't include those costs in the eligible basis for the housing credit. So housing credit equity can't be used to pay those costs. It may mean that tenants need to stay in place during the rehab work if that's at all possible.
I can see how that would make rehabilitation more difficult and time consuming. Probably adds more cost and sacrifices resident safety too.
Yeah, actually, in some instances, it makes rehabilitation impossible.
So how does the bill address this?
AHCIA would allow tenant relocation costs incurred in connection with the rehabilitation to be capitalized as a part of the cost of that rehab.
That sounds like a good fix. Thanks, Ariane. For more on our video series, visit the Action Campaign's website at www.rentalhousingaction.org.